Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm starting us off right where we left off. In the last video we discussed how you should really, when you're sending when you're doing your copy constructor and you're sending something by reference, you should have this const modifier in front of it to denote that it's constant and all of its data should not be modified within the function. So in this case, within the copy constructor. But then I showed that when I compile it with this const, I get these errors. So now we're going to work through these errors. Now the reason, so the first error that I get, it says member function get not viable. Okay, so actually this is a pretty good error. C++ sometimes doesn't give us very good errors, but this one is actually pretty illustrative. So this command or argument has the type of const array, but the function is not marked const. So in C++, there's this concept of constant functions. So there's a whole discussion of, constant objects, calling constant functions, non-constant functions, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So basically, to make a function const means that you want to allow objects that are remaining constant, that their data is fixed, you want them to be allowed to use those functions. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end about when this is appropriate, when it's not appropriate. So the first one that I see is this get. So, and just to confirm, in our copy constructor here, orig is constant, and we are calling the get function here. So what we need to do is we need to go into our header and we need to put the const keyword here, denoting that it's constant. It can be called by constant variables. And now whatever you do in the header, you need to modify it also in the CPP. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and I'm going to try to rerun it. All right, now I get another error, as some of you probably are like thinking right now. You're like, wait, but what about get size? Yeah, okay, so get size is the same deal. So we need to add that const here and here. Okay, and now if we run it, we should be good to go. And now a.out, and our copy constructor is back to working. So when you start introducing the constant keyword, you have to be really aware of, what functions you want to give constant objects access to. By that I mean, so get variable or get functions are simply, what they sound like. They're just getting a value within the object and they're returning it. They're not doing any kind of manipulation to the object itself, or at least they shouldn't be. So those are pretty safe to mark as constant. Now, whereas if you had a set function, so maybe I have a void set size that gets an int, and the idea behind this would be that the user would send in a size or an integer, and the calling object would then set its size appropriately. Now this one is modifying an element in your object, so you wouldn't want to make this one constant modified. You would want to disallow any kind of constant objects to make this call. So those are just kind of the design decisions that you have to make. And this is going to come in a lot when you guys go over operator overloading. It's something to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of is that just because I make it a constant function doesn't mean that non-constant objects cannot call that function. If we go to the main, now my array1 and array2 in the main are not constant. So if I say array1.get size, I suppose I should print that. And then we compile and run. You'll see that even though array 1 is not constant, I can still call that getSize function, no worries. So the way to remember it is that the only thing that you're restricting really are the constant objects. Non-constant objects can call any kind of function, constant or non-constant, but those constant functions are only going to have access to the constant variables, or constant functions rather. And that's all I have to say about constant. Leave a comment if you have any questions. You can also email Dr. Balfour. He may forward you on to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you got. Thanks.